Chief County Officer from Nairobi County Government. Victor Agolla is in charge of the digital economy and startups. He holds an MBA in entrepreneurship and a BCom, and currently, of course, serving in government, looking at a startup. I think this is the first of its kind we're seeing from a county government, which is quite innovative, I must say. He's a startup and SME policy advocate, entrepreneurship ecosystem, a strategist, an author, and also startup thought leader and researcher. Victor is deeply passionate about the African entrepreneur, and he's also worked with over 500 organizations. That's in over 5 African countries. That's in East and Southern Africa. Previously, he has served in Oda, Nepal, the Ministry of EAC, looking at regional development, and also the UK Tech Hub, Digital Africa, Africa Labs, GSA, ICT Norway, and many other institutions, I must say. So quite opportune now, and I must say trailblazer in this kind, representing the Nairobi County Government. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Victor Agolla, please, as he comes up.
Thanks, Loba. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Victor Otieno. As Laban has ably introduced me, I work at Nairobi City County as a chief officer, which is almost like an assistant minister for a new sector called digital economy and startups. So this sector was created this year, actually. So I'm literally 7 months in office. So it was created under Executive Order number 1 of 2022, which is the governor trying to rearrange the county government. So he created a new sector called Innovation and Digital Economy, just looking at primarily the tech ecosystem. And specifically, my role is leading the digital economy and startups. So the idea is there's a lot of talk around the digital economy, but how do we do it? So that is the hard task that that has been handed down to me. Together, I think with me is my director, Elizabeth. Maybe probably you can just wave. At least I didn't come alone. So we have our director under digital economy and startups who is keeping me company in case there's a riot here. In terms of what we are looking at, just an overview in terms of the innovation ecosystem is that we see a lot of things that are happening within the ecosystem. We see reports indicating that the startup or innovation ecosystem in Kenya is growing. Looking at different indices, looking at the Global Innovation Index, looking at the Startup Ecosystem Index, we see Kenya performing very well. Looking at venture capital that is coming into Africa, Kenya playing, I think the top 3, it's always either Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt. So in terms of funding, Kenya takes roughly around 17% of all VC money that is coming into Africa. Recently I saw a crypto adoption index. Again, it came up quite fast, and of course we are seeing Kenya also doing well around the same area. Also from a global tech, we see again the big tech companies setting up shop in Kenya. It is an indication of there is some value that they see in the country. So of course we've seen Amazon, Facebook, Google, MasterCard, some of them setting up shop, some of them putting up their African base here. Of course this gives an indication of the potential that is there within the innovation ecosystem in Kenya. Locally, I think the biggest startup that we have, as Ahmed has indicated, is M-Pesa. Again, the idea for us is how can we be able to build more of those? Yeah, so ultimately our theory of change is if we're able to build more M-Pesas, it means then we can be able to address the issue of unemployment. So currently we have over 1 million young graduates who are getting into the labor market, and we need to be able to give them employment or give them some sort of income. So we feel if we're able to support the innovation ecosystem, then probably we can be able to tackle the issue of poverty and jobs. So we are not just looking at tech as romance, we are looking at tech as a force that can be able to really sustain socio-economic development. So of course we have other examples of startups, Market Force, Trigger, etc. But I think the challenge that we see is that there's a focus on certain verticals within the innovation ecosystem, Even if you look at the funding that is coming, is going towards fintech. Looking at deep tech, we're not so much there. Looking at blockchain, Web3, we still are not there. So the idea is, how can we be able to create a pipeline across all verticals to ensure that we're able to sustain a good pipeline of innovators, of course, which has a direct correlation to foreign direct investments. So in terms of the different stakeholders that are there in the ecosystem, what we see is there's a lot of silo. I lack the English. Silage, what do you call it? Too many silos. So look for that English word. So we see a lot of silos within the ecosystem. So we have big tech who are operating within the ecosystem. We have private incubators that are there. We have incubators that are funded by academia also there. I mean, we have CSOs who are also changing their strategy to be more digital. So looking at AMREF, looking at ILO, etc. All of them are moving towards digitization, but what informs them? Do they have the capacity? Do they have the depthness to be able to execute a digital strategy? So of course, they're making their mistakes. There's a lack of collaboration on that end. In terms of key enablers within the innovation ecosystem, looking at different reports that are there, for us to be able to build a digital economy and not just to be a consumer of technology, we need to be able to have some framework of sorts to ensure that we have an environment that is conducive for all innovation, respective of whichever innovation that we're looking at. So looking at, say for example, the African strategy on science and technology, they've recommended a couple of things that are needed for us to be able to build out a digital economy, looking at infrastructure, and we've seen national government focus on fiber optic, and of course even looking at other jurisdictions, Singapore, India, Germany, infrastructure is very important as a foundation for building a digital economy. Looking at issues around talent, we can talk about blockchain and all types of technology, but if you don't build the actual capacity in terms of talent, then we'll continue to consume technology. So those are areas that we are looking out as a county. So this is basically an overview. Probably can go to the next slide. So at the beginning of the year, we developed a strategic plan for the county, which is called the County Integrated Development Plan. Just different boxes in terms of what do we need to do for us to be able to sustain jobs. So we are looking at innovation generally as a vehicle for socioeconomic development. Yeah. So then the question is, how do we support the different verticals that are there within the ecosystem to ensure that we're able to do exactly that? So different buckets, looking at ease of doing business, even as we look at blockchain or whatever, is the different stakeholders have to be supported. Whether the investors, whether they are techies themselves. I think we were discussing with Ahmed before the session is we still have a challenge in terms of capacity. How can we make it possible for talent to be mobile? So that if you have a talented techie in Egypt, it's easier for them to just take a simple flight, sit here in Nairobi for 3, 4, 6 months, help a startup, then they can be able to go elsewhere. So that forms some of the basis in terms of ease of doing business. It's not just tax only, but there are many areas that we need to be able to explore. Our approach towards this is an ecosystem approach in terms of looking at the regulated environment. Can we be able to engage the ecosystem for us to be able to co-create policy? So that I don't just sit at City Hall and decide today I'm going to give 30% tax break. I mean, it's more engaging the ecosystem and trying to ask ourselves, what kind of regulation do you want to see, or what kind of support do you want to see for us to be able to move the needle? So that's a huge workflow that we have, and we've started to make strides around the same. We want to be able to position Nairobi as Africa's innovation hub. And of course, there are different programs that we have around the same. We are currently hopefully to host an innovation week in 2 weeks that would allow the ecosystem to be able to come and take stock. So it's not just any other event, but it's an opportunity for us to be able to ventilate, see what is working, what is not working, and possibly craft strategies to ensure that we're able to create value for the different players within the ecosystem. We are looking to globalize our startups. Again, an Estonia mentality. We know that the market in Kenya Kenya is a very good testing ground for a lot of innovations. So we see we can be able to to exploit this opportunity for our startups. The more we're able to expose them to different markets, the more they can be able to innovate for those markets. So that you're market-driven rather than just innovating for the sake of it. So we have an entire program around the same where we would want to expose our startups to different innovation forums, TechCrunch, you know all of them. We are looking to increase our interaction as government with the ecosystem. The innovation ecosystem is very unique. It's not like your traditional SMEs that is predictable. Things shift too fast. So the only way for you to be agile and to be nimble in terms of addressing the needs of the ecosystem is to have more engagements, more regular engagements, not just meeting once a year, but on a regular basis. And we've managed to do that over the last couple of months. We've had interactions with different verticals. We've had conversations with big tech, Oracle, Safaricom, etc. We've had engagements with different hubs, your iHub, whatever. We've had quite a number of conversations with startups themselves. Just not conference type, but just sitting, having coffee, and just asking ourselves, how can we be able to move the needle? Of course, funding is a major issue. Again, just looking for models that work for us as Kenya. The funding models that we see in Europe, in US, sometimes might not work for Kenya. And I'll give you an example. Is the reason why we're in the quagmire we are in is because a lot of funding that is coming to Africa, Kenya, etc. is more towards fintech. So the question is, how do you bring in funding for deep tech? How do you bring funding for Web3? How do you bring funding for education, agriculture, etc.? So we need to be able to explore models that would allow startups to be able to get this type of funding. And the way we've done this is by decentralizing resources for innovation. So we are actually creating 85 incubation centers that are focused on different sectors. So say, for example, we are exploring setting up an incubation center at Mbagathi Hospital with support with AMREF, say, for example, and as well as Vilgro. So, I mean, with this triple helix of sorts, then we can be able to channel funding because we know that AMREF or any other organization that is a CSO is trying to solve issues around health. So how can we be able to link these people together so that government can be able to give data, which is very important, because one of the challenges that we've received from startups within health is lack of data. And of course, how do you access that? So we need to be able to develop a framework that allows startups to be able to access health data for which would improve the innovation. And of course, we have an innovation of taker in terms of AMREF or any other organization. So those are the unique funding models that we are looking as phase one. Then probably as we move forward, then we can look at sovereign funds. We know that if we start in Kenya with a fund, that's the end of story. So everyone would want to manage the fund, and we'll kill that particular initiative. So we are starting small. We are starting with, I was telling Ahmed, milk. So we are starting with milk, then probably we can be able to introduce solids moving forward. So I think, like I said, is at the heart of innovation, we are looking at an incubation center. So, I mean, the sooner we're able to decentralize and allow for your local young person in the community to be able to engage, the better for us. Otherwise, if we take innovation as an elite sector, then we miss out on talent or on resources that would have otherwise not have gotten. So in terms of our incubation center model is we need to be able to get startups. We are getting private incubators to run the hubs for us. So government is not in the business of running incubation centers. So for all our incubation centers, we are partnering with sector-focused incubation centers. We don't have those as much, but we're also using this opportunity to allow our private incubators to specialize. So if you go through Nairobi County, out of the maybe 40 or so hubs, a lot of them are generic. So if you go outside of Vilgro, Circular Hub, if you were to mention any other hub, nothing comes to mind. It's because they do everything. They do everything and anything. And even for them, they're not sustainable. So they are depending on grant money. And of course, after COVID, things became thick. So we hope that the model that we are adopting, where we have an innovation off-taker with a hub running, then probably they can be able to create their sustainability around the same. And of course, we are trying to catalyze local corporate investing. So a lot of corporates, private companies in Kenya don't take innovation seriously, for lack of a better word. So we hope that with the model that we have, they can be able to leverage on startups to be able to innovate either for their product lines, or they can be able to invest on the startups as a diversification strategy. So just looking at different case studies, of course, we've been able to look across the world and just pick things that can be able to help us as Nairobi County. Looking at Germany, what are the key lessons that we can learn from Germany? We see strong data infrastructure. We see public-private partnerships. So these are things that we picked as, or borrowed a French leaf to ensure that we're not just, putting interventions that don't make sense. So we tried as much as possible to benchmark with different jurisdictions. So looking at data infrastructure, of course, at a national government, we have a data protection law. I mean, to be able to give foundation for management of data, because I think as Hamed has said, at the heart of, let's say, for example, Web3 is data is structured in a certain manner. So we need to be able to see how we can be able to do that. And again, like I said, we are trying to, as much as possible, to work with the ecosystem. We currently have an MOU with Adenian Labs, who are helping us think through, the entire Web3 and how can we be able to structure that to happen. Of course, public-private partnership is very important. Government will not have all the resources or even the know-how to be able to engage the ecosystem. So again, we've partnered with a couple of people within the ecosystem. We have Moringa School that we've partnered with. We've partnered with Safaricom. We've partnered with Baraza Media Labs. Just different partners that make sense to different verticals. Like I said, Vilgo, etc. So partnership is extremely important for the county government of Nairobi. Looking at India, we've seen India embed a lot of Web3 or AI-driven platforms. I mean, for us, again, is how can we be able to bring the ecosystem into government? So one of the things that you'll notice, and we are inviting you for the Innovation Week that is happening 7th to 11th, is we are partnering and having conversations that can lead to the ecosystem coming and supporting government initiatives. So if you look at health, for example, as a sector, they're struggling and they have budgets to do interventions within health. But on the other side, we have innovators who have solutions that can be applied within the health sector. So how do we bring these people together? So that's something that we're trying to see or explore to see if that can happen, whether it's an AI platform or an AI backbone or whatever technology that you want. I mean, we want to be able to have those conversations, expose government to be able to see. So sometimes we say there are a lot of innovations in Kenya, but they can't get access. The only way to do that is through dialogue. Again, from India, and of course looking at studies from AU, is for us to be able to move away from consuming technology to producing technology, is we need to be able to skill our young people. So we can talk about whatever technology that you have that we would want to achieve, is if we don't literally finance capacity building through technology, then we're just wasting time. So what we've done so far is we've partnered with ICDL for us to be able to start exposing young people to basic technology. Then we graduate them to, say, for example, with Moringa on basic coding. Then we have different pathways that we can be able to allow the young people to models for financing for startups. Again, our focus currently is just trying to be able to bring local VCs to play in this space. So currently we have partnerships with Safaricom, DTB, and a couple of other private companies that already have adopted the model, and they're like, we can be able to explore the same. So of course there is the issue around responsible AI, which is a whole different topic, but again, for us is not looking at technology in wholesome, but looking at technology being applied in certain sectors. So if there is any consideration around ethics, it is not at an aggregate or wholesome level, is within health. If we are to apply this type of technology, what are the ethical considerations that we need to take care of? So yeah, so without killing you with the PowerPoint presentation, I would beg to finish there, and in case we have any questions, then probably I can be able to take it up. Maybe just as an emphasis, we are having an Innovation Week 7th to 11th. I mean, it's free for everyone. So we're not charging any delegates. So again, part of our strategy to reduce the barrier to entry. But if you want to partner, probably we can have a conversations around the same. Asanteni sana and God bless.